Hey guys, it's the zeitguy again. I'm just here to do a quick video here for you on a few things that I wanted to work on. Basically, there were some objections that I was telling you about that I wanted to go over, and those objections are about what people feel are, how people feel are misinterpreting the idea of the Venus Project and the things, what that entails and what you can tell people and what the most common objections are. So I'm just going to start off with saying I'm just going to just jump right into it, and the first thing is utopia. Obviously this has to be some sort of utopian society. So the first objection is about utopia. That's what people say all the time. It's whatever. Basically, it's not a perfect world, right? So, and especially it can never be a perfect world in a practical world, which means it can never be perfect, it can never stop, and it's constantly changing, and the world is constantly emerging, so therefore it cannot be a utopian society. It's just, there's no such thing as a perfect world in a practical world, so it's just constantly changing. The second thing is communism. Communism, basically, it's not communism, because communism has to do with money, and this has nothing to do with money. So, with communism it's kind of tricky, because there's no two people that can agree on, what communism is, but all versions seems to have monetary or profit or differential advantage or things of that nature. So you definitely know that communism isn't one of them. It's definitely not one thing that is has nothing to do with the Venus Project. The Venus Project has nothing to do with differential advantage. It has nothing to do with separation. The only way the Venus Project can actually work is if we do it globally, and that's a big thing. Another thing that communism actually portrays as well is property, which is an outgrowth of scarcity. And the reason is because people need to have things, and people want to keep things because you think there's not going to be enough of them, there's not going to be enough around them, and things like that. So that's another thing. So the next part would be competition, and competition is a good thing, right? That's what we're brainwashed to think that it's a good thing. It's very interesting how we can develop things, and we develop innovation and develop motivation through competition and all this stuff. So it has to be a good thing. Now, the way to get over this objection is that you have to think of it as, I believe Jacques Fresco mentioned this as well, is that you have to think of it as the Venus Project is like your human body, or the world is like your human body. If your brain decided that it needed more power, and it went out for itself, it didn't control any of your organs in your body, you would be dead within a month, you'd be dead within a week, if all your organs went out for themselves. So that's how you have to think of how competition is. And if you look at the world as one big place, you're looking at, if humans didn't exist, this world would be a perfect place. So it's symbiotic. The world would continue without us in it. Technically, human beings make it worse because of the way that we are, unless we can change, which we can change because we have changed throughout history. So that is another big one. So when it comes to competition, we don't need it, right? So it's definitely one of those things that you want to address to people, because remember, we're brainwashed and conditioned to think a lot of these things. So the next thing is the big question is, what would I do? And that's the big question that everyone seems to ask, because that's really what it is. If you really think about your mind, and you think about what you want in life, and if you really try to strip away all that conditioning that you've had, you try to ask yourself, what is exactly that you want? What exactly is it that you want to do? And the answer is that we're creative. What is the whole idea of being, having the human mind, is that we're able to create, and we are very good at it. Basically, creating is art. And whenever we decide to create it is art, and whenever we decide to learn as art. And being creative is the most important thing that we can possibly do. So the question isn't what would I do? It's what could you do, without the restrictions of money? How many things are out there that you actually want to do or want to try that you can't because of these restrictions? And if you eliminate these restrictions, what is it that you would actually want to do? So that is something that you have to ask someone. If someone decides that they want to be like a police officer, you have to understand that they've been conditioned to believe that being a police officer is a good thing. Because being a police officer is helping helping people. It is a good thing. But the reason why they're put in that spot to begin with is what you really have to ask yourself. People that want to go into advertising, they have to ask themselves why they want to do that. What is it they really, really want to do? Because I'm pretty sure when they were a kid, they didn't want to do advertising, or majority of the time. They didn't want to do advertising. They didn't want to do anything in marketing. They wanted to do something that's fun. When you're a kid and you think about what you're doing all the time, and you're running around, and you're playing, and you're playing, and you're playing, and you're doing things, and you're making things, that's called being creative. It comes to a point when you come to school, when they direct you in a certain direction, and that is where you decide that you can't do what you want to do anymore. A majority of people can't do what they want to do anymore. So the next thing that people will want to talk about is exactly how does if we're, what exactly is it that we do, or what would we like to do, and basically all of our answers will be arrived at because of the system that we create, because we'll be creating a database. Now they use the example of Wikipedia, and that's a really good example. I mean, if you look at Wikipedia, and it's just full of information, it's multilingual, and basically you don't need to buy those big encyclopedia books and put them on your shelf and all that stuff. You don't need that anymore. Everything's at your fingertips when you're on the computer. So this is something that people really have to understand how the Venus Project is. And once we were able to analyze, that's the word, to analyze all of the world's resources as one whole planet, one race, like we've always been, that is when we decide that where we can put all the knowledge in. So imagine Wikipedia as the concept of the Venus Project, of how everything is at your fingertips, how everything is monitored and documented, and people can input information and change information and finalize information, and constantly learning. Whatever you want to learn will be in that system, right? So the question is, who runs Wikipedia? What's the infrastructure? And so obviously there are so many restrictions because it's because monetary reasons, right? But if you didn't have any monetary restrictions, what do you think Wikipedia would look like? It'd be unbelievable. Everyone would have access to it, and it'd be just this huge, let's just say, oracle of knowledge that people would have, and would be able to adapt and use, and we would use that to better our planet, as opposed to continually to ruin our planet or make a Wikipedia in order to profitize, to make money from it. There's so many reasons why. So anyway, all of our answers are arrived at, all our conclusions are arrived at through basic analysis. Not basic, well, probably most likely complicated analysis, but in the future it won't seem so complicated because we won't be so close-minded. Everything would make more sense. So.